Congresswoman Victoria Spartz, who just came back from a bipartisan trip to Ukraine to address these rising tensions along Ukraine's borders. Great to see you, Congresswoman. Let's go ahead and start with what senior officials are saying on the ground about the ongoing standoff, because if you judge by everybody's actions, it doesn't appear this is headed to a good place.
Well, I think, Jackie, the situation is pretty serious in Europe. Unfortunately, when we don't exercise our strengths and keep the peace and stability, we create a lot of instability around the world. But let's just call it how it is. The current situation there, it's not because Russia has any national security concern. It's not like we lived during the Cuban Missiles crisis where they needed to be closer to us to have some missile range. The situation is there where Russia and China team up for a different reason to challenge the United States. Russia wants to have its dominance and has big ego. China wants natural resources. Ukraine has some of the largest deposits of rare earth minerals, and Ukraine blocked any strategic purchases to China, and the government not allowing China to buy any strategic assets. So I think they have an interest there, and I think it's important for us to de-escalate, the situation, but also exercise some leadership.
Right, and Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby delivered a grim warning, basically saying that Russian President Vladimir Putin could decide to invade Ukraine at any time. Watch this.
We believe that he has enough capability to move now if he wants to. He continues to add to that capability and those options, and he could, depending on what his goal is here and what he wants to do, he could move imminently. At any time.
Congresswoman, an idea that's been floated by the United States is tough sanctions on Russia, but right now it's just been conversation. Many are saying it's time to impose those sanctions to show Vladimir Putin that the United States means business.
Well, unfortunately, President Putin is exploiting weaknesses of this administration with having very bad energy policies. Western Europe also has bad energy policies, our failed withdrawal from Afghanistan, and I think it emboldened them. So I think we need to try to have a diplomatic resolution to this issue, but we also need to show what, to say what we mean and then mean what you say. I think it's very important for us and show what we're going to do, and if diplomacy doesn't work, then Russia has to have some deterrences, and for any decisions that they make, there should be some recourse. And right now, United States has been reluctant to exercise leadership internally or externally.
Yeah, and there have been conversations about sending troops over or how involved we would potentially be if a conflict did arise. But we do know this. Ukraine's defense minister tweeting that the U.S. has sent 500 tons of defense equipment to Kiev. What do you make of the assistance being offered by the White House? Is it enough to help? Because on the ground, since you were just there, you know that Ukraine is prepared to do whatever it can to fight off Russia's aggression, but it could be very bloody.
Well, and I think, under the Budapest Memorandum, we have some, guarantees that we provide, for the sovereignty of Ukraine, but it's not a guarantees that we provide to our NATO allies under Article 5. It's a very different situation. So we need to be helpful to Ukraine and also other countries, other European countries. UK signed this agreement, and European Union need to step up, because this is actually a threat, a bigger threat to their national security than even to ours. So they need to be more responsible to help Ukraine, because this is really create a situation when we start dividing borders in Europe by force. That's cans of worms. It can create a lot of problems for them. So the Western Europe specifically, I know that Germany is a tough situation, but they need to start thinking about it. Russia used to be in Berlin too, and also we need to be helpful, but also make sure that our NATO allies feel that we're there. And that's why it was important for us to have this bipartisan trip. We went also to Brussels to assure them that United States of America and Congress on a bipartisan basis will stand with our allies.
Right. And I mean, some of the NATO allies almost seem like they've pulled back a little bit, Congresswoman, because they understand the consequences of what could happen if there is an invasion. For example, what we could see in the energy market, about a third of Europe's energy comes from Russia. And so we'll have some issues there. And so it seems like everybody is almost on different pages here, jockeying for their own position.
Well, I think, we might have some issue in the short term, but it's make us rethink in the long term. Do we want to be dependent on countries like Russia? Unfortunately, bad energy policy, of this administration made us import much more oil from Russia than ever before. Unfortunately, under Trump administration, we were building liquid natural gas facilities in Europe. We were looking to provide more security with energy security to Europe, and everything got pulled back. So I think it's a good consideration for us how we can be more strategic and diversify some risk in the long term.
You're absolutely right. Congresswoman Victoria Spartz, wonderful to see you tonight. Thank you.